Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of LTF. Week 3 of the season, the Premier League season is upon us. Fresh off the back of, well, obviously us recording on a Thursday, we're fresh off the back of the League Cup. It's the first round, I suppose. First round, second round? Either way, the Premier League teams got involved. Obviously Burnley fans fairly happy that our B team beat Blackburn's B team. It was a bit of an odd team selection from both sides, but either way, it ended up in Burnley winning, as most people expected. I was expecting a banana skin, but fortunately we stepped over the banana skin, and now we've just got the small task of Leeds at home. Yeah, great. But anyway, that was the eventful tie, I suppose, and special mention to Nottingham Forest for knocking out Newcastle United. Although it's probably not the Geordies aren't going to appreciate me saying that, but at least they get to focus on the league, which is definitely more important for Newcastle anyway. But let's get on to the Premier League. Obviously, John is with us as usual. Hello,
yes,
John.
he is. Yes, I was wondering when you were going to come to me then.
Yeah, I just thought I'd do a slightly different intro. Almost completely forgot, but sometimes it took a while for you to introduce me in the KLT trophy, but we'll gloss over. We'll blame that on the fact that the players wouldn't stop making chances. Anyway, well, just quickly before we make our Premier League predictions, a touch on obviously what happened between Burnley and Blackburn. You were commentating on the match. What were your thoughts?
Well, I'll put it a unique way, shall I? If this was a two-horse Grand National, I'll be honest with you, Blackburn would have, and they'd gone to Beecher's Brook the first time, that difficult fence on the back straight. I think Blackburn would have fallen at that first time, and it was a horrible performance from Blackburn. They never got going at all. As for Burnley, I think they should have won it by 4 or 5. I'll be honest with you, it was the complete professional performance in a derby game. So much riding on it away from home. I mean, it could have been. I mean, let's just be. I mean, Burnley and cup competitions haven't been very kind in the last few years, as we both testified. But last night it was a totally different sort of way. Sean does. He went back to 4-4-2. I thought putting in the squad players did really well. I thought Nick Pope had done well. Charlie Taylor looked lively down the left-hand flanks. Looked absolutely brilliant. It was a really good performance. Cork, excellent. Brady man in the match for his goal and assist.
Yeah,
really, it was just terrific, and no fault for the lads that came in. And it was an ultimate professional performance. And it's the first Premier League side we've actually won 2 away games in all competitions. We won at Chelsea, we won at Ewood Park. What odds now for a third win at Wembley? But
well, we'll see, won't we? We'll get onto that in a few minutes. But now it's time to move on, basically, to our Premier League predictions time. It's going to be an interesting one this week. All the games are happening across Saturday and Sunday. There's no Monday night football. So, sad day for Jamie Carragher and Gary Neville, but I'm sure they'll put their thoughts on various other ones anyway. But let's start, I suppose, with the earliest kickoff. Bournemouth. They've got their first involvement in the England squad, and Jermaine Defoe for the first time in a long time for them, going up against Manchester City, who, well, yeah, they certainly won't be liking the prospect of going to Bournemouth early in the season, where they're feeling optimistic, and Bournemouth's a difficult place to go. We know that they throw the kitchen sink at any team that turns up. Whether they will have the quality, will Jermaine Defoe make the difference against a big team like Man City? That'll be a question that'll be asked in that match, and we'll see. But based on what we've seen from Man City so far this season, they ground out results against the teams which perhaps were up for it a bit more than them. The Brighton game was a good example. It's obviously they drew with Everton, which was a bit of a surprise in a way, but obviously they were down to 10 men, so they got bailed out by Raheem Sterling in that regard. But obviously that game, Rooney scored his 200th Premier League goal, second to Alan Shearer now. He's creeping up on that record. But yeah, Man City, I'm going to back them for the victory in this one. I think they'll just have that little bit extra quality compared to Bournemouth. Obviously it's a bit of a mismatch in terms of sheer stature of the two clubs. Obviously one is playing Champions League football, the other one is still finding its feet. I think they've got over their second season in the Premier League. They're finding their feet now in the Premier League, but the golfing class I think will eventually show. Probably say, I reckon Bournemouth will probably get themselves a goal, but I'm going to say 2-1 to Manchester City. I think they'll just have enough on the day. They've managed to grind out the results against the... Well, I say they grind out the results. They've managed to get results from their 2 games this season so far, which was a tough test against Brighton, who put up a good fight, and obviously they managed to steal a point against Everton despite being down to 10 men, and I reckon they'll, with 11 men on the pitch, they'll be alright, and they'll just about get over the line at Bournemouth.
Well, I'm going to go exactly the same. This is a tough place to go to, Dean Court, it is, but Bournemouth have had a bit of an horrendous start to the season one way or another. I think this is probably going to be the toughest test. The first 2 seasons they've done really well. I will say that about Bournemouth. They've done very well. For a team that gets 10,000 a home gate to survive the first 2 years is no mean achievement. But this is going to be a really tough ask, the third one, because they've started really much on the back foot, losing their first 2. It's difficult. I just think Manchester City will just do enough. I think Bournemouth will make it difficult for them. Man City is still not watertight. The goalkeeping situation is a big issue, and the defence. Can they gel in time? But City should have enough in attack anyway in the final third to get over the line. So, like you, I'm going to go 2-1 to Manchester City in this one.
I mean, we said this about Bournemouth last year with their games at home against the big teams. You know, they throw the kitchen sink at them, and it's not unheard of for them to get a result against a bigger team. Obviously, Liverpool fell victim to them last year.
Manchester United season before.
Yeah. So perhaps it's City's turn, but we don't seem to think that. But don't be surprised if they get something. Anyway, moving on. That was a 12:30 kickoff. Then we've got 3 o'clock kickoff. We'll start with Crystal Palace because they're first in alphabetical order in the home team department. Crystal Palace. This is a big game. This one early on in the season as well. You could say a relegation 6-pointer this early on. You've got Crystal Palace. Obviously, they haven't had the best of starts to the season. Obviously, they lost at home to Huddersfield and then lost to Liverpool, who they usually get the better of. Going up against Swansea, who again haven't had the best of starts. Just lost their key man in Gylfi Sigurdsson. Although it looks like that they're going to sign Wilfred Boney by this stage on Saturday. They may well have signed him, which would be a really good signing for them. Obviously, they know him, but they did get a point against Southampton, which is more than what Crystal Palace have. But I would say it's a relegation 6-pointer early on in the season.
Definitely.
It's going to be a tough one to call. From what I've seen so far this season, I can't see a winner personally. I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw. I just think both teams are going to cancel each other out. It's one that they, I would say they can't afford to lose. It's that early in the season, but these two teams, I reckon, Frank de Boer, the new system that he's bringing in, obviously it's going to take a while to come into effect, and the problem is if it takes a while, the rot can set in and it can be really difficult to get out. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. But obviously Swansea on the back foot, losing a key player, whether Boney comes in and makes a difference or not. But I'm going to have them down as 1-1. I think they're both fairly locked on levels of ability and everything. The Palace fans will be up for it. Obviously, they'll make the atmosphere as intimidating as ever. But these two teams, I think, are fairly even, and that's why I'm going to go for 1-1.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm concurring again with you on the scoreline. I think it'll be 1-1 also. I just think Palace. I think also that this new system, they're used to the Sam Allardyce way of things. Now Frank de Boer's come in. He's trying to go very attacking. I don't think he has the personnel, I believe, to play that sort of freedom football that he preaches in Holland. Also, he's coming to a league where it's very, very competitive. I'm not saying the Dutch league getting any less competitive, but he's dealing with big expectations. Crystal Palace are established Premier League outfit. They've gone for a lot of managers. He needs to hit the ground running, and so far, his first 2 games, I haven't seen any evidence at all of him hitting the ground running. I mean, the Huddersfield game was there for him to make a mark, and he didn't. But
he did get sacked at Inter Milan after 50-odd days or something. So
50-odd days, so he's got to be wary of that. I mean, Palace aren't scared to fire managers. Neil Warnock was manager 2 or 3 years ago, and he got sacked at halfway. So when things aren't going well at Palace, you run the risk. Pardew got sacked halfway through last season. So he's got to hit the ground running, I think. As for the game itself, Swansea, obviously, as you say, Gylfi Sigurdsson's now gone to Everton. I think that's a big blow for them. Wilfred Bonny could make a difference, but I just think...
It still leaves the massive hole in midfield.
It does.
Bonny won't change that.
If Paul Clement doesn't address that, I'll tell you this now, I think they could be in the bottom three.
Well, actually, just thinking of Swansea, did they... I'm sure I read somewhere, didn't they sign Clucas, was it?
Sam Clucas, yeah, that's
I think
right.
They signed him, so
yeah.
that won't fill a Sigurdsson-sized hole, but it will help, I suppose.
Sigurdsson was a special player, but Clucas will have to go some to emulate what Gylfi Sigurdsson did. Getting back to the prediction, I think it's going to be 1-1. I can't choose a winner between these two sides. I think Swansea, yeah, pretty tentative start. They have a point on the board. They got a point at Southampton, pure and simply because of Southampton's inabilities in front of goal. As for Palace, they need to get on the board, I think. I don't think they'll win. Obviously, the Holmesdale Road will help them along. I can't pick a winner though, despite all that. And I'm going to go 1-1. I just cannot see either team at the moment on current form getting a victory.
Okay. So then, moving on, we're off to Huddersfield next. Huddersfield obviously off to an absolute flying start, going up against Southampton, who have had a bit of a slow start. It's not a bad start, but just sluggish. They're not quite at the races yet. But I suppose that's what happens when you change managers, just at the drop of a hat. I mean, they changed their manager last season for no real good reason, to be honest. Maybe they just felt like changing. But I've got to say, the way Huddersfield has started, this to me lines up as another Huddersfield win for me. The confidence at Huddersfield is sky high. Southampton, like I said, they're slow to start. I don't think they'll like a trip to Huddersfield, especially the way that they'll be feeling right now. And I'm going to back Huddersfield to win. I'm going to go for Southampton. Look very blunt up front. I know they did okay in their previous match against West Ham, but West Ham were down to 10 men. Although they nearly threw it away. Hernandez pulled 2 goals back for them, which was an incredible effect in itself. We'll get to him in a minute because obviously they're the next match on the list. But I think Huddersfield will probably get the victory here. I'm going to go for 2-1 to Huddersfield. I think they'll just about have enough. That home crowd will certainly be behind them all the way. Confidence is sky high, and I just think they'll continue to ride the wave, and people will be raving about how they'll probably be the first promoted side to win all three of their opening fixtures, which obviously Match of the Day will go mental about, and various others. Bit like how everyone keeps mentioning that Harry Kane still hasn't scored in August, that sort of thing. But that's what I'm going to go for, 2-1 to Huddersfield.
Well, William, you must be psychic because I'm going for exactly the same scoreline. But getting back to the reasons for why, Southampton as well. We must not forget in the League Cup they had an horrendous defeat on Wednesday night to Wolves, who, to be fair, are favourites to go back into the Prem, and I make them as one of the top contenders. But you know, they put a fairly strong team out Southampton the other night in the Cup, and they were just all over the place. They even failed to score. Two really schoolboy defending on both goals. I think this is where Huddersfield could take advantage. I think they probably, if they keep going at this rate, they may well be maybe concerned about losing Aaron Moy and possibly David Wagner, because at the moment David Wagner can do no wrong. He's tactically astute. At the Jurgen Klopp school, I think he's probably a much better manager at the moment than Jurgen Klopp at the moment, considering the results and all that. 6 out of 6, for a team like Huddersfield Town, is a magnificent achievement. And I would back them all the way to the hill if they made it 9 out of 9. They've had a superb start to the season. They were superb against Newcastle, a very blunt Newcastle, I should say, but although the true Geordie won't forgive me for saying that, and he won't forgive me for the next game, what we're going to preview as well. But back to this one, I just think Huddersfield have got the crest of the wave. Aaron Moy, as you say, has been totally unplayable in the first couple of games. They've got a new striker who got 2 against Palace, I'm forgetting his name. But Southampton defensively look all over the shop. Fraser Forster isn't the strong presence in goal he was a couple of seasons ago. I think after an horrendous cup defeat to Wolves, this is the last place they want to be going, to the John Smiths, and it's a long trip up to Yorkshire. And they will not enjoy it at all, I think, Southampton. They don't do well when they travel up to that part, as they mean, Burnley's a few miles down the road, and they don't enjoy trips to Burnley that much. So I can see this being a real, and I think Huddersfield will get 3 out of 3. I think they'll win 2-1.
Okay. Next up, I hinted on it a moment ago, is Newcastle versus West Ham. Two teams that could really do with some points. Both teams played pretty well in their fixtures. Obviously, West Ham got drummed by Manchester United the opening day of the season, and then obviously they just missed out against Southampton despite having 10 men. Hernandez nearly pulled off the miracle, but couldn't quite drag the team to a victory. He was doing the definition of carrying that night. And obviously, Newcastle, they just got knocked out of the League Cup by Nottingham Forest. They haven't been particularly good in the league so far anyway, obviously losing to Spurs and then losing to Huddersfield. So it's early doors. I wouldn't call this a relegation 6-pointer. I think both teams will quite well. Maybe not Newcastle. I think they'll have a tougher season. I've put them in my bottom 3, but I think for both these teams, this is one of those games where you're coming up against a club that's a similar level. It's certainly a stature anyway, but it's really tough to call. But I'm going to say West Ham to win at St James's Park. The Geordies are going to be booing at 2 games in. I think West Ham will do it. They certainly showed that they've got the quality. I wonder what the odds are on Andy Carroll scoring. But I would back Hernandez to continue his fine form so far. I'm going to back West Ham to win. I'm going to say by 3-1 at St James's Park. It's going to be a tough day for the Geordies, but I think West Ham, they've improved in the right places so far this season. And the addition of Hernandez for less money than Chris Wood is certainly looking like one of the bargains of the season, by quite a long way. But yeah, I'm gonna back West Ham to win by 3-1. Have you picked the same score? By any
yes,
chance?
we must be telepathic. That's why I gave a right smile when you said it. I've gone for 3-1-2, but here's what I think. I mean, look at the book seriously. I mean, laughing aside and all that jazz.
By the way, we haven't discussed any of this before the episode.
No, it's not. Can I just explain to our viewers? It's not a fix. We haven't looked at each other's predictions before we come on air. I should make that perfectly and utterly clear. Anyway, back to the game. Back to Newcastle, West Ham. You look at the 2 squads on paper, and you have to say, in terms of business, West Ham have done far better in terms of business than Newcastle. Newcastle have been a bit like us to a certain extent. They've gone after a lot of targets, but have failed to land them. And remember, they've got Rafa Benitez in charge, who's won the Champions League and the Europa League.
And the FIFA World Club Cup.
Yeah, and everything else. And it's just, I just don't understand. I just don't understand Mike Ashley's policies up there. I mean, I feel sorry for the Geordie Nation. They want to, all they want is success. They're a big club up there. And they are demanding. They want. I mean, going out the League Cup must have hurt them, the fans, more than anything else, because there's nobody that wants a trophy more than those Newcastle fans. It's been nearly 50 years since they won the Fairs Cup. West Ham, however, I think Bilic, he had a tough couple of games, to be fair. I mean, also what you've got to consider is they've had to play that Southampton match away from home. They were originally down to play that at home, but obviously the Olympic Stadium is not quite back to its capacity after
because they had the athletics thing, didn't they?
They've got the World Athletics Championships been on recently, but this one I think is. I think this is a much easier game for West Ham because Newcastle have had an horrendous start. Not only have they lost out to Forest in the League Cup, as you touched on, they've had some horrendous defeats. Well, they've certainly had an horrendous defeat. Spurs, you can understand. Spurs are a top seed, but to Huddersfield, all due respect, must have hurt the Geordies very hard. I know the True Geordie on his channel. When he was doing this promotion for Corals, he was like watching the game, and you could tell
bunch of bottle jobs.
Bunch of bottle jobs, and I think he'll probably end up losing it again this week. I'm afraid because you've got to say, I think Javier Hernandez is an absolute predator. His 2 goals were well taken, and if they hadn't had Arnautovic sent off, Chris, I think they would have won the game.
Yeah, they were in it. But...
And Arnautovic has cost him, and it was his own fault. Having said that, I mean,
Shelby got sent off for Newcastle in the first match as well. They've both shot themselves in the foot recently.
Having said that, though, West Ham on paper should do more than enough. I think Newcastle need a striker badly because I think they're blunt up front. But Dwight Gale's trying his best, the poor geezer. But Newcastle will score at least one. But I've got to say, West Ham, I think Hernandez will continue his run. And if Andy Carroll comes off the bench and gets a third, well, there'll be Geordies crying into their Newcastle Browns at the end of that, won't they? So I'm going to say it's Newcastle 1, West Ham 3 I'm going for. And that is straight from the heart, not from the head.
Okay. Well, now we get to the last 3 o'clock kickoff, by the way, this one. Watford against Brighton. Now, this match should be quite the interesting one. Now, Watford have had a fairly decent start to the season. Let's be honest. Obviously, they opened the season with a 3-3 draw to Liverpool, although they did incredibly well against Bournemouth. You go to Bournemouth and you expect Bournemouth to at least score once. They kept a clean sheet. They played incredibly well. I put them down as finishing 8th this season because I think the signings that they've had this season have been terrific as well. A lot of teams have done fantastic business, and Watford are definitely up there in terms of distancing themselves from relegation. That's for sure. But it's going up against Brighton. Brighton seem to be in the category that we were when we went up the first 2 times. Giving it a good go, but not quite having the quality. They're still busy in the transfer market trying to find that quality, Brighton, and quite rightfully so. They are looking for that bit to get them over the line in these games. But I think it's going to be another case of them huffing and puffing, but not quite having it. And Watford at home are a tremendous side when they're playing at Vicarage Road. They're a tremendous team. This might be where Andre Gray perhaps gets his first goal for the club, although he's got to get in the side. It's really difficult at the moment. I'm going to back Watford to get the victory. I'm going to say Brighton seem to lose by 2-0 each time. I can't remember what they lost by last time. 2-0, funnily enough. So I'm going to go for 2-0. John, what have you gone for?
Well, surprisingly enough, not the same scoreline this time. I'm backing Brighton to get a point here. I'm backing Brighton because... Let's face it, Watford had the other night. You failed to touch on this. They had an horrendous performance on Tuesday night in the League Cup, losing to Nottingham Forest, losing to a very well organised Bristol City side. And Andre Gray had a super chance to level the scores, and he failed miserably. Wow. That's not a dig at Andre himself. It's just that I'm just basing this on facts. So don't think it's sour grapes, Andre Gray, or any Watford fans listening. I can't see a goal in this game. I think Brighton will get a clean sheet as well. I'm going for 0-0. I think this... I just think this could be the moment where Brighton could get their first point. They've shown glimpses in the first 2 games. I thought they played okay against Manchester City from the footage I've seen. And they could have at least snatched a point from that. Obviously, they got a bit of a reality check last week.
What's that? You go to the KP, that's what you get.
Yeah, Leicester City are a really good side. But as we found out, I just think Watford are going to be a lot easier proposition for Brighton, and they're a good, well-organised side. Brighton had a lucky escape in the League Cup as well, and Knockout was complaining. He could have easily been sent off for arguing with the referee because he was kicking off big time, by the sounds of it. But having said all that, though, Brighton are a pretty well-organised side, and if they get a bit of luck, I can see them actually scraping a 0-0 draw. I don't think they've got a good enough attack at the moment to score any goals at the moment, but they're very well organised. They've got a good manager, and it would be nice to see them get off the mark. So I'm going to say Watford 0, Brighton and Hove Albion 0.
Okay, so we finally deviate on our opinions. Then we get to the 5:30 kickoff of Saturday, or today, should I say, which involves Manchester United at Old Trafford against Leicester City. Now, this should be a good one. Over the last 3 years or so, Leicester and Manchester United have thrown up some really, really classic matches. Generally at the KP, but at Old Trafford, you would have to back United the way they've been playing. Obviously, they've recently re-signed Zlatan Ibrahimovic today. It got confirmed that he's signed a new 1-year contract because he's been doing really well in his rehabilitation, which scares the life out of me because you're going to have Lukaku potentially Lukaku and Ibrahimovic in the same attack with Martial and Rashford on the wings. That will scare the life. Do
you know what?
That's going to scare the life out of me.
Before you continue, Chris, that could be the most crucial signing of the season as regards to the league title race. Because
he's not going to be fit until December, but
to have him, if United are handily placed in both Premier League and Champions League going into the new year, he will be like a new signing to them. He is really, technically speaking, a new signing, but he'll be like a new signing coming in the second half of the season.
He'll be fresh as well.
Exactly, and I think that could be the catalyst. I think this is where United could win the league with that one signing alone. So I just thought I'd better make that point anyway, as you were saying.
But getting back to the Leicester game, I can see this being full of goals. United so far have scored 4 goals in both their games. I don't expect that to change. I'm going to back them to score 4. This time, I would expect them to maybe concede because Leicester are one of the better teams, I think, in the league. Certainly out of that mid-table bunch. Obviously, they had a horrendous start last year, but they recovered reasonably well. They'll certainly be fighting for that 8th spot. I don't know whether they'll challenge anyone for 7th, but they'll certainly be looking to be the best of the rest. I reckon they'll score 2, which is what I'm going to go for. I'm going to go for Manchester United to win by 4 goals to 2. Lukaku will probably score because he scores against teams like Leicester and below generally. But I think Manchester United, they've got so much quality. I think they'll score 4 again at Old Trafford. And that's what I'm going for. 4-2 to United. Well,
I'm going to go again. We're going to differ on the scores a bit today. I think it'll be a bit more closer than what you're suggesting. I think United will win 3-1. Going back to Zlatan, I think he's going to be probably the crucial signing as regards the Championship race. That would be the Premier League title race, I should say, and the Champions League. If they're handily placed in both competitions, I think United are in for a very exciting second half of the season, I must say. As far as this game's concerned, I think Leicester are one of these sides, even against the bigger teams, they'll always make it difficult. They made it difficult for Arsenal on the opening night. They were very, very unlucky not to win, to get a point, let alone win it. And they were winning 6 minutes of winning at the Emirates. Mind you, against the Arsenal side, who are very, very much very open side at the moment, defensively not so sound. But Manchester United are a bit different to Arsenal in terms of they don't give anywhere at the back. They've had 2 clean sheets so far. They've scored 8 goals in their first 2 games. They look very, very good in attack, very good in defence. Matic has made a hell of a difference as the anchor man.
Oh, yeah.
I don't expect United's form to change anytime soon. But I think Leicester will make it really difficult for them. But I would say Manchester United's quality, in the final third especially, should be enough to see off Leicester City. So I'm going to say Manchester United to win the game by 3 goals to 1. But I wouldn't say it will be a pleasure cruise because Leicester will make it very, very difficult for United.
Okay. So that's all of the Saturday games out of the way, all of today's games, to be up to date with when this is uploaded. And then we move on to Sunday, the 27th of August, which has the first kickoff. Actually, there's 2. That's interesting. They've got 2 kickoffs. They've got 2 sets of 2 kickoffs at the same time. So you've got 2 games at 1:30, and then you've got 2 games at 4 o'clock. So we'll start at, obviously alphabetically, Stamford Bridge, where Chelsea face Everton in the Battle of the Blues. Wayne Rooney scoring against Manchester City last week will look to score against another team that also wears blue. One of his main rivals of previous seasons, maybe not so much now because he's playing for Everton, but I think this will be another good test for Chelsea. Obviously they recovered reasonably well against Tottenham last week. They put in a really good performance to come away with 3 points there. Marcus Alonso, goodness me, you wouldn't have thought that guy would be playing at that level when he was playing for Bolton Wanderers. But it's incredible. I think Everton will certainly be a tough test for them. I know that Spurs put them almost to the sword, although to be fair they didn't actually score. It was a Chelsea own goal. I can't say the guy's name who scored an own goal, Batshuayi or whatever he's called. So tough to call. Obviously their home record this season is not very good. Lost to Burnley opening game, but that was with 9 men, and they did really well to make it to get it back to 3-2. If Morata starts, I think they'll do reasonably well. I still don't know where Morata sits in the pecking order, I would think he would start ahead of Batshuayi now. Obviously, Batshuayi scored an own goal against Tottenham and didn't do anything in the first game, so you would think that's what would happen. Yeah, I'm going to say it's a really tough one to call. Everton have got lots of quality as well. They've made some astute signings. Obviously, Wayne Rooney is in pretty good form to start off the season, I must say. Maybe the retirement from England duty is helping him as well. I think he made that decision a while ago. I've got to say, I think these two... I can't pick a winner, if I'm honest. I'm going to go for the same scoreline that Everton had against Manchester City. I'm going to say 1-1. I think they're obviously Chelsea have got all their injuries and a few suspensions to deal with. And Everton are a really well organised side, very good defensively. Yeah, I'm going to say 1-1. I really can't pick a winner out of those two.
Well, I'm going to go for I'm not exactly the same score, but I'm going to go for a draw. But I'm going to go 2-2. But a word on Chelsea. I don't think they're as watertight as they were last year. I think they do miss the leadership skills of John Terry.
They're missing Matic. That's what they're missing.
And they're missing Matic very, very badly as well. As good as Bakayoko might be, I think Kante has missed his wingman really in Matic.
Well, he could be getting Danny Drinkwater alongside him soon. There's a lot of talk about that going on.
Well, there's a lot of talk, but as we say, talk is cheap, actions speak louder than words, and that's a phrase I've used more than once this last week. As for Everton, I think they've had a very decent start to the season. I thought they should have. I mean, they were lucky not to win at Manchester City on Monday night. I thought they played really well in that game. Very, very well organised side that Ronald Koeman's got, and they were cruelly had a win snatched away from them. But 4 points from the first two games. I mean, with the teams they've had so far, Stoke and Man City, that's not a bad return. I would expect them. I think they're more than capable of grabbing at least a point from Chelsea, considering they've got to be. I think they've got to take inspiration from when Burnley went a couple of weeks ago and really play Chelsea at their own game, not to be overawed by the occasion. They've got big game players, more than what they have at Burnley, who seems to be on a really good form of his life at the moment. Obviously, with the England burden now off his shoulders, I think he'll play with a lot more freedom. I think the Everton side look a very settled squad. I think Sigurdsson will really add massive strength in depth in the midfield. Whether Ross Barkley will stay, that remains to be seen. But I think Everton, have done really well to start the season. 4 points is not a bad return. I can see them getting another point on Sunday. Sorry, I think they'll get a 2-2 draw. But they'll make Chelsea. If Morata starts, they will score at least 2 goals. But I don't see Everton. I see Everton making massively difficult life for Chelsea, especially with their back four, and especially David Luiz. If they get it in early doors, I can see them scoring a couple of goals. And with Rooney in form, it wouldn't be beyond the realms of possibility. So I'm going to say Chelsea 2, Everton 2, and I'll dare say an entertaining match.
Yes. Okay, and then the other 1:30 kickoff is a battle of the Tony Pulis sides. West Brom at home to Stoke in what is a classic middle of the road, mid-table, means nothing match essentially.
There's another word you missed there, beginning with M. Midlands.
Yes, that. Well, Stokes.
Stoke's in the Midlands. I'm not having that. I'm a Northwest team. They're a Midlands side.
Well, either way, I cannot separate these two sides, really. Stoke, obviously, off the back of that tremendous win against Arsenal, Jesse Rodriguez looking a very astute signing. I'm surprised other teams didn't go after him, but that's where it goes. And West Brom, obviously, they've obviously coming off the back of the win at Burnley, which a win away at Turf Moor is generally a good result.
And to be fair, they put a strong side out at Accrington Stanley and did a really good job on Accrington Stanley, which wasn't an easy thing to do at the Crown Ground.
No.
So, give Tony Pulis credit. He's got up to Lancashire twice, and he's got two very, very good wins there. So let's give him a bit of credit.
But I really can't separate the two sides. Again, I'm going to have to go for another draw with this one. West Brom are very good at home, but Mark Hughes has got Stoke playing some good stuff. I mean, it's tough to call. You'd probably edge it towards West Brom simply because Tony Pulis knows what he's getting with Stoke. But it's been a while since he's been a manager of Stoke. Let's not forget that it's been a while since he left. But I can't separate them. I think it's going to be a low-scoring match. I'm not going to say 0-0 because West Brom, they play with a little bit more freedom at home than they do away. They play very defensively at Turf Moor. I mean, why wouldn't you? But I think they'll play with a bit more freedom. I'm going to say, I said low scoring. I mean, I want to say 2-2, but I just can't see both teams scoring 2 goals. I'm going to go for 1-1. It's really tough to call. Whether Jesse Rodriguez can deal with an afternoon match in West Brom. West Brom is the highest stadium in England. It's altitude-wise. Apparently, that makes a difference according to the odds study. I read it. It was an article last season. I forget where I read it. It was on my phone on one of my apps. But
if it makes such a difference, how come they've not won a trophy since 1968? Then you know what I mean. But never mind. As for my predictions, I think West Brom, despite losing Al Robson-Kanu, and I'll be honest with you, I think some of the tactics used by West Brom, certainly there was a back end of the match at Turf Moor, were a bit disgusting. The time wasting, and I noticed this when I was doing the commentary last week.
The ball was out of play longer than it was in play. That's what it was.
It was. And there was only 4 minutes added on at the end of the match when there should have been 6 or 7. Al Robson-Kanu took at least 2 minutes to go off the field after quite rightly sent off. And then Ben Foster was taking about 30 seconds of throw and goal kicks. This is another gripe. I can see another gripe coming on here. And then there was the substitution. So you're looking at, well, it should have been 6 or 7 minutes, but the fourth official, who I have to say I don't know his name because he looked pretty inexperienced to me, added 4 and I thought that was disgusting. But having said all that, though, I don't think Burnley were going to score in a month for Sundays, even if they had 7 minutes, in fairness.
No, when you have 20 shots and not one of them hits the target, you don't deserve to get any points.
Yeah, exactly. And then we had a moment of madness on Robson-Kanu's goal. But we'll touch on that when we preview Burnley in a bit. As for this game, I mean, Stoke have had a good result against Arsenal. It was a bit scrappy, but deserved 1-0 victory. Jesse Rodriguez, and I did predict he'd get the winner in the game, although I did think it was going to be 3-2. But I think West Brom's home form is really good at the moment. They are, I think, sometimes on their day against the lesser sides, not so much against the bigger teams, but against the lesser sides, they are certainly unplayable at home. But Stoke will make it difficult for them. I think they'll score Mark Hughes' side, but I would back Tony Pulis' side just to nick it 2-1. I don't think there'll be much in the game. It's a Midland derby, so there's going to be plenty of passion. It's a local derby. Stoke's only about 20 odd miles away from West Bromwich or Birmingham because they're just on the outskirts of Brom. So local derby, passions are on high. I just fancy West Brom to nick it, but I think it'll be a very close game, and I think Stoke will give it. Stoke and West Brom, obviously with Pulis involved, there will be a competitive element towards it. So, but I would still fancy West Brom on current form at home to win by 2-1.
Okay, then we move on to the 4 o'clock kickoffs with the last 2 fixtures of the day, which we'll start with the slightly bigger clash of the two, which is Liverpool against Arsenal. Now, the last season was quite an impressive fixture, you got to say. This season, obviously, Liverpool have just come off the back of qualifying for the Champions League via the playoffs by beating Hoffenheim, and they started with that electric pace that the Liverpool side that came second in the league were renowned for a few seasons back under Brendan Rodgers. It was reminiscent of that. They literally just threw the kitchen sink at it for the first half an hour, and they separated themselves enough from Hoffenheim to get through. Whether they will do that against Arsenal, obviously they've done it in the past. Arsenal will be wary of that half an hour blitz, and I'm sure Liverpool will come out of the traps very, very quickly, and they'll want to establish their dominance fairly quickly on the fixture. It being at Anfield as well, the atmosphere will be electric. And Arsenal. What was it? I read an article as well recently about Arsenal. It's saying that basically described them the runt of the top 6. I think that's a little bit harsh, but it's probably fair, to be honest. Other than bringing in Lacazette, they haven't really strengthened in the areas that they needed to. I still think I do agree that a lot of Arsenal fans are saying that they need a centre half, although a lot of them want Rob Holding to get the chance, but he has one bad game and he immediately gets thrown out onto the bench, which I think is a bit harsh from Rob Holding. He's never going to get better sitting on the bench.
No, it isn't.
So I think it's going to be a tough day for Arsenal, to be honest. I think that first half an hour will decide which way this goes. If Arsenal can weather the storm, they might be able to nick a point, or maybe all three. I mean, let's not get it wrong. Lacazette is a quality striker, and he does have that quality to win games when it is very, very close. But it's whether they weather that storm in the first half an hour. And I don't think they will. The way Liverpool looked against Hoffenheim was just outrageously good. They'll be riding a wave of momentum, obviously, after confirming their qualification for the Champions League. There will be so much confidence in that side, and I'm going to back Liverpool to win. I'm going to say 3-1. I think that first half an hour, they will probably score all 3 of their goals. Arsenal might pull one back in the second half to give them a bit of hope, but that's just how I see the game going. I think Liverpool, they were just on a different level on the playoff nights, and I think the confidence going into this game will be sky high. Arsenal, obviously, off the back of that Stoke result, they won't be very happy, and they'll be trying to put it right. But I just think they'll come up against the Liverpool side that is just on it right now.
Yeah, I have to concur. And Liverpool traditionally, certainly in the last 20, 30 years, seem to have a very good record against Arsenal at Anfield anyway. Arsenal are really up against it now. I mean, as you say, Liverpool will be riding a massive crest of a wave, having destroyed Hoffenheim over 2 legs. I did the first leg, and I thought they were very impressive, apart from the last 5 minutes when Hoffenheim pulled one back. But I thought the man I was more impressed with, and we failed to touch on it at the moment, but I will touch on it now. Trent Alexander-Arnold. I mean, if they lose Coutinho, what a guy to have on set plays.
Oh yeah,
he's got a long throw, free kick. I had the pleasure of commentating on last week in the first leg against Hoffenheim. Was a tremendous free kick. I thought it was one of the best free kicks I've seen so far this season. I think Liverpool.
Young.
Yeah, I have to be honest. I don't know where the next point's going to come from for Arsenal. They look a shambles at the back. If Lacazette doesn't start firing, I can't see them even making 6th place the way they're going at the moment. They're having they were lucky to beat Leicester. They were very lucky to beat Leicester because Leicester, let's be fair, did more than enough in that first match to warrant getting 3 points, let alone even getting 1, and they ended up with nothing out of it. Right? Arsenal were terrible against Stoke. Mesut Ozil took a lot of flack in that game because he never tracked back at all. He expected the ball to his feet in the final third.
He never does that though. When the going gets tough, Ozil's the first one to wilt. Literally,
exactly.
he disappears.
And this is the problem that Arsenal are going to have because they just don't have the enough workman-like players to grind out results at your Anfields or your Stokes or whatever. And I just think they're going to be found out wanting again. And it kills me to say because I like Arsenal. I like Arsene Wenger and the way he sets up teams. But the lack of transfer activity, apart from Lacazette, has been absolutely stupendously stupid. And you can understand why Arsenal fan TV is now big business as regards Arsenal fans crying over it. And I think they'll be crying into their London pride on Sunday night, I'm afraid, because Liverpool, I think, are in red-hot form. Yes, they're scoring goals left, right and centre, and I can see them getting another 2 and a clean sheet as well. So I'm going to back Liverpool for a very comfortable and very needy 2-0 victory.
Okay. Interesting. Backing them for a clean sheet with their defence, I'm not sure. Lovren was... Well, that's all a matter of opinions, I suppose. And then, of course... I say that because there were very opinionated views on a video that I did recently about Chris Wood, but I'll get to that a little bit later. The last game of... Well, obviously it's another 4 o'clock. But it's the last game of the weekend, essentially, is Tottenham at Wembley against Burnley, which...
Yeah, Burnley at Wembley, and we're not even made a cup final.
It's the first time that we've been back since that wonderful day against Sheffield United, way back. It's behind here, actually. We've got the little banner for it. 25th of May 2009. It's always going to be a memorable day. That was the last time we went to Wembley for... Obviously, we're having a 100% record at the new Wembley. We'll be trying to keep that up.
In cup finals, this is a league game.
Well, whether you class the playoffs as a cup is... Well, we did get a silver thing at the end of it, to be fair. So
yes, we did, and I thought it was a bit of a crap trophy, to be quite honest.
Well, yeah, you look at the playoff trophies that they get now. They get these big things, and we just got some little flipping egg cup. But oh well, it is the
Well,
playoffs. It's what you get for coming third.
that's not our fault, by the way. That was Coca-Cola's fault, by the way.
Well, Fizzy Pop League, as the Blackburn fans called it back in the day when they were laughing at us. Who's laughing now?
Yes, exactly.
Not me, to be fair.
A great little catchphrase from the great Bob Monkhouse.
But anyway, yes. So we're at Wembley again. 100% record at the new Wembley at stake here. Obviously, more wins than Tottenham there, I suppose, in recent times. God, I hate to say that, but I suppose that's how it is, I guess. They lost the semi-final, and then obviously they lost their opening game. So, yeah, I suppose they haven't done particularly well at Wembley recently. They'll probably be looking to put that right, and it wouldn't surprise me if they did. I really don't know what to think of our away form this season. Obviously, we played 1-1-1, and it was at Stamford Bridge, so quite rightly, we should be slightly optimistic. Although we beat Chelsea and lost to West Brom, that's life as a Burnley fan. It wouldn't surprise me if we beat Spurs and then lost to flipping whoever's our next home game. Crystal Palace. Yeah.
Crystal Palace, and I'm getting I'm going to go and get tickets for that as well. So there's going to be a vlog on that as well.
Oh, excellent! But I really don't know which way to put this. Tottenham played really well against Spurs, but Tottenham played well against Spurs. Donuts. Tottenham played really well against Chelsea. I'm leaving that in as well. That's not even going in the outtakes. That was a horrible gaffe. Tottenham played well against Spurs. Yes, they played their B team. That's just terrific. So yeah, they did really well against Chelsea, but just didn't quite have that cutting edge. Will Harry Kane score in August against Burnley? This is his last chance.
The burning question.
You would think. I mean, Burnley fans are probably like, are we playing Tottenham in August? Yes, that might mean that Harry Kane may not score. I reckon, to be honest, I think this is where he'll break his duck in August. They'll shut up about him not scoring in August, and what they'll continue to rave on about is Harry Kane scores in August for the next couple of days anyway. I mean, our away form, hard to say this season. I really have no idea. We played really well against Chelsea. We were terrible against West Brom. Obviously, our B team flat out dominated Blackburn, so I've really got no idea which way this is going to go. I could sit on the fence and say there'll be a draw, but I'm going to say Tottenham. Tottenham should win. They should get this duck off their back, duck off their back, water off a duck's back, whatever you want to call it, monkey off their back. This Wembley curse that are constantly being thrown at them. I think Harry Kane will get rid of this August curse as well, and I'm going to back Spurs to win. I think Vokes will get a goal. He's in terrific form right now, and he owes us the goal from the last match. Goodness me, he had so many chances. But yeah, I'm gonna back Spurs to win by 2-1. I think Harry Kane will get a goal, so they'll all shut up about August. And I think the Wembley curse will be broken. It's going to be a tough test. I think we'll give Tottenham a good match. We always have done in the past, apart from obviously previous. There was one anomaly where they beat us by quite a lot in our second Premier League season. But we always seem to give Tottenham a good game. It's always a good game with them, to be fair. But I think they'll have enough on the day that there'll be 90,000 on this one, because it's not a security concern, because it's not a derby. So I think the atmosphere will be incredible. But yeah, I'm going to as much as it pains me to say, I'm going to back Spurs to win by 2-1.
No, I mean, I've gone. I mean, your heart says Burnley win, but you've got to go with your head sometimes, I'm afraid, Chris. I mean, we're at Wembley. It's great to see Burnley at Wembley, but I think it's going to be a long afternoon for us. I think we'll give Spurs a good game, as you touched upon. And before I continue, I'd just like to say, on the subject of Tottenham, one of their greatest ever celebrity fans, Mr. Bruce Forsyth, died in the last week or so since we filmed the last LTF. One of the great entertainers, 75 years he was in the business. I remember him for Play Your Cards Right and all that lot, and You Bet and Strictly Come Dancing and the Generation Game. I'm sure Chris will echo in saying farewell to Brucey, because he was one of the best entertainers. Just going off topic. So
both North London clubs.
He did, because of the war.
Yes.
He used to go. Yeah, because
they both used to share White Hart Lane during the war. They did. So he went and watched both of them.
Yes, but I think they want to probably give Brucey a good send off with a win to Spurs, to be fair. As for the game itself, I mean, my heart says I'd like to see Burnley get a draw, But the away form has been quite different this year. If you include the cup game last night, than what it was at the start of last year. It took us until end of April to get just one win on the road in league and cup all season. Whereas at this stage this season, we won at Chelsea and won pretty well, and you know, we was going swimmingly well until the last 20 minutes, and then we just had to hang on for dear life. And then even against 9 men, and then I mean, we probably put in the most comfortable victory of the season against Blackburn Rovers. It was just unbelievably easy for us. But this is going to be far from easy. I mean, I think I've been like you. I mean, we know now Harry Kane will score because he does have a tendency to score goals against us. He certainly did last year. And I just think I think if we stay in the game, we've got a chance of a point. But realistically, looking at it, I think Spurs will just, I think, have too much for us. And it pains me to say it, and it breaks my heart in two. I'm going to say Spurs to win 3-1, but I really do hope, from a Burnley point of view, I am very, very wrong, and I do hope I'm wrong, but I've got a feeling it might be a Spurs victory, 3-1.
Okay, so that's the predictions done then. Yeah, but that's where we're going to leave it. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you, as usual, John, for giving your opinion.
Yes, it's been a delight as usual.
And we will see you all next Saturday. Thanks
for
for
an
watching.
International, before we finish, an international special, because all the old nations will be in European qualifiers, and not only that, it'll be non-league day, so we might have a little focus on a bit of the old non-league as well.
Oh yeah. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next week. Cheerio.
Cheerio now. Well, it was a cup.
You did get a... What the hell was that?